FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Talk briefly to the positive effects of the Olympics. They're not as many as we would have liked,
right.
And I will say the genesis of this book was looking at the Korean Olympics in 1988 as a transformative moment for that country, which now is one of the most durable human rights respecting countries in the region, in the entire Asian region. But as to the very specific things that have improved, in January of 2007, the Chinese government implemented so-called temporary regulations that give journalists, it lifts a very onerous restriction that was much hated and also much ignored, that required foreign journalists to get Chinese government permission before interviewing anyone. So just imagine how difficult that would make your life if you're a working reporter in China. So those temporary, they're called the temporary regulations, and those went into effect in January of this past year. And I think were greeted with quite a bit of enthusiasm by the Western press, but of course it set up a completely inequitable two-tier system with where Chinese journalists had far fewer rights than Western journalists, which is kind of funny given all of the rhetoric of how China is victimized by the West. In this case, you've got a two-tier system where Chinese journalists have fewer rights.
Let me just interrupt you. Just hold your thought, because yesterday we did an event here with Emily's colleague, Shai Oster, who just won the Oz Elliott Journalism Prize at the Asia Society, and he received the award for his coverage of Three Gorges Dam, which was a story that came out in the Wall Street Journal. It got some attention here in the United States, but it was translated into Chinese and on the WSJ site in Chinese, and then it got picked up and became really a tsunami in the secondary market in China that led to significant change by the Chinese government. So it's connected to what you're saying.
Yeah, anyway, and it's, I think if you were to say what is the most interesting and possibly seismic shift that's underway in China today, it would be the role of the internet, which is, by the way, censored, but, and there is a great firewall. It really is effective. I always remember when Bill Clinton went to China in 1998, he made a speech where he said, "Oh, censoring the internet will be like trying to get Jell-O to stick to the wall. You can never do it." But I think it's fair to say the Chinese government has succeeded in getting Jell-O to stick to the wall.
Right.
They've done a very effective job of censoring what people can see. There are tens of thousands of censors. That's your job every day. You get up and you go to work and you censor the internet and you censor chat rooms and you monitor what people are watching and reading and you look in people's emails. So I do think, but on the other hand, there are 200 million people on the internet, and there are cracks in the Great Firewall, and it is possible to get information in and out, and increasingly that's how we're getting information. But it is press freedom. There are lively publications. Investigative journalists are doing real gumshoe reporting in China. They often step across the red lines that they know are there, and they get themselves into trouble, but they keep doing it. And one of the most interesting things for me was that, as usual, when the earthquake happened, the propaganda directives went out to say, do not cover the quake, wait until we give you permission to do this. And just reporters from across China got on planes. They ignored the directives and they went and they reported. And the last time that happened was in 1989. And that didn't end very well in 1989. But I think the effect of both the Olympic spotlight and watching Burma get it horribly wrong mere days before. So after the cyclone, the Burmese government closed the country to humanitarian aid, looted what got in, wouldn't allow a journalist to report. So I think the Chinese government both had the example of what not to do, combined with the Olympic spotlight, led to some greater openness. And it's not, this is an evolving story. We don't know where the story's going, actually. But the early indications are that there was certainly more freedom than there has been, even as recently as January with the freak snowstorms that stranded people. So I think if you were to say what are some of the positive, there are some other positive things, a drop in the number of executions, which is little covered but very interesting, and that's due to a fairly obvious change to the criminal procedure code. Actually, Jerry Cohen of the Council on Foreign Relations has a wonderful chapter on that in the book, if you're interested in learning more. But so some of the changes to the legal system, I think, are also very promising. But it's the ability for Chinese people to communicate with other Chinese people, whether it's through the media or through the internet, that is the most interesting and promising development in terms of bringing China to the rest of the world, Chinese people together, but also bringing China to the rest of the world.